This is That One Audition with Alyshia Ochse.
I want to know how a DC guy follows his way to New York and then, of course, falls into the Bernthal trap of come to LA. You can do anything in LA. I mean, you've been working for a long time, show to show. I love doing IMDb where I'm like, has he ever had a lull? And of course, I know you probably have, but according to IMDb, you haven't. Missed a year. You have not had 1 year off, Teddy. Teddy, do you take a vacation? Could some other people get some jobs?
Listen, I love that it seems that way because it is true. Things have been released every year. And I think I've worked every year. The pandemic year was a year that no one worked, but luckily I was working on The Politician, Ryan Murphy gig. This was Netflix. This was our season 2. And we were done and wrapped I was done and wrapped in early January of 2020. And then, of course, March of 2020, everything goes sideways. I was shooting a pilot for NBC called Ordinary Joe that was shooting in Chicago. And we got 1 day of filming under our belt. And then we were shut down. And then the whole rest of the year, I didn't work till the following February. But so it's felt to me like, listen, I know I had because I know this shit, I catalog it. I know I had a 9-month gap in this year. I had a 7-month gap in this year. And I know this because, oh God, one of it, I was like coming off a series. Fox tried to reboot the 24 franchise. So in 2016 into 17, we did 24 Legacy in Atlanta. We shot 12 in one. So we did 13. And then I didn't work when that series was over. And I was like, wait a second, shouldn't I? Because anyway, I clocked the stuff because there's a little bit of, wait, I just did this. Why am I not popping onto something else? And then maybe there's a one-off here. So the long and short of it is I have been super fucking lucky to work, but I want to, like every actor, want to be busy. I want to be busy.
I know. I just was telling you, I talk to my agent almost every other day, and I've had a good year where a lot of people I know are having a tough year. There's a constriction. Yeah. But when you work, you want more. I've worked every month this year. We've done 12 projects. And I'm like, so
now,
why is nobody calling? But
I know.
What's up? But that's the actor way. And we have to figure out that in between. And I think the in between really helps sustain. Like I do this. I get to talk to you today. Right. So,
it feeds the sort of I imagine, because it's doing it for me. It feeds this thing that's easy to forget that as an actor, you're part of a larger group
ecosystem.
Part of a larger ecosystem. And you're part of a larger group of actors who are proud enough and lucky enough to be able to call themselves actors. And not every great fucking actor works every year.
Daniel Day-Lewis does a movie every 5 years.
He's a Martian. He could work if he want. He could just be, hey, I want to do something this month, but I'm going to do shoes instead.
Look at Giovanni Ribisi. I'm going to see something he's in, and I was like, where's he been for the last?
I know. Like that. Like Claire Danes is like, oh, I just did this thing. I won an award, and no one called me for a year. Like these things do happen.
They do.
So talking to you helps. Also, I had an actor friend who during our strike last year, he's like, I stayed an actor in my head. I didn't forget that I was part of this thing. I was still reading a lot. I was still staying up. I was still watching a lot of stuff. I was doing a lot of research. And so things like this, whether you're on a podcast, which is amazing. Thank you for having me, by the way, or listening to one, it keeps you connected to this thing. And for me, it reaffirms, hey man, it's not linear. It's lumpy sometimes. And you're going to have great years. You're going to have shitty years. You might have a shitty 3 years, but if you hang around and you stay sharp or you stay connected to the fact that you're part of this bigger thing, I truly firmly believe that your number is going to get called again. I don't know.
That's okay. So I want to know, Teddy, how did you get started in this that brought you to New York? Was this always, for me, I was 5 being like, I'm going to be in the TV. I didn't know what that meant, but I was going to be in it. I was going to find my way inside of it. Wow. And the way I found myself to it was totally different. So I'm curious as a DC guy.
I'm from suburban Maryland, and that's the greater DC area. And no one's dad or mom, to my knowledge, did anything in the arts or the creative arts to make a living. Everyone's dad was in business, or they were a lawyer, worked for the government or whatever. My mom was a teacher for over 30 years. My dad was a marketing guy my dad had a bunch of jobs, but his last sort of long, big job was, he was a director of marketing. So these are not, but it's not like I see a path because so-and-so in my family is doing this, or my dad does it or whatever. So how I found my way to what really was, it's a long and winding thing, but I went to University of Virginia and I was in the business school, really interested in business. I still am, but I was really revolting against the oh God, the path that was laid out for us, which was you go to business school. This was like a school within a school. It wasn't like I wasn't getting a master's here, but 2-year business school. Everyone was like being prepped and primed to go work in consulting, or they're going to be an accountant, or they're going to be in marketing. They're working for Bain. They're working for fucking one of the big 6 at the time accounting firms. I just didn't really feel like that was my path. So I don't know, man. I pushed against it really hard. A girlfriend at the time, this is so stupid, but a girlfriend at the time's mom worked for United Airlines. This is pre-September 11th. She worked there so long, she got literally like a book of companion passes for her or family to use. And so it was a graduation gift. And then my girlfriend at the time were like, we're going to move to Hawaii. We're doing a different thing. And so we took these companion passes and we like went out to Hawaii. And she didn't stay. She did not want to stay. She had her own plans. And so I stayed by myself. And I ended up going to, I wish it was as neat and tidy, but I ended up going to movies by myself. I got a job, but I had a lot of spare time. And so I would go to movies. I go to the library, check out books. I go to the movies. And so there was a lot of time just like I don't know. I love fucking movies. I really love TV. I really love TV, but TV junkie. And so Hawaii didn't really work out. I washed out after almost 6 months, went back home, ended up in New York City. Friends were like, come to New York City, come for a weekend. And whereas I thought Hawaii was what I wanted, like I wanted something different than what everyone else was doing. I wanted something quiet. I went to New York City and it was I was 23. It was fucking exploding with excitement, you know? This is 2000. And I'm like, this is where I got to be, man. And I didn't know it. Everyone was young and the energy was high and still no acting aspirations on the horizon whatsoever. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was interested in modeling. And I always feel like a little bit like, ooh, like you can't get that. But my 22-year-old self thought it would be. So like, oh, if I could just be the guy in the catalog standing on the
right.
snow.
You're tall, you're lean.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be a great life? Not having any idea how any of that shit worked. But I went to New York, weirdly, as the sort of universe does. A high school friend sent a mass email. I was like, hey, I'm being transferred from my investment banking job in San Francisco to New York. I need a roommate. Anyone want to move to New York? It's a small room. I was like, yes, I'm in. I'll do it. $1,000 a month. I didn't know how I was going to come up with that money. I literally only had $1,500 in my account. I was like, okay, I'll get there. I'll pay and I'll figure it out. And I did. I went there. I started fucking doing anything I could to make a little bit of money. And a friend who was there introduced me to his agent, modeling agent. And the agent's, yeah, if you move to New York, like I'll work with you. So I moved to New York. He made good on his promise. He's like, yeah, I'll work with you. And then very quickly after I got there, he got this agency, got an audition, like send us 10 of your guys, One Life to Live. We need a shirtless bartender for a Valentine's Day episode. And I remember going to the audition because I thought, honestly and truly, I thought it would make a great story to tell my grandkids. I was like, oh, I'm new to New York. And I can tell them I went to an audition one day. Like I wasn't, but I didn't memorize the sides, but I learned, it was 2 pages. I learned it. I remember my agent, because I had no classes or even a headshot. I remember being in his office. He's okay. Let's say you took, he's making it all up. Let's say you took scene study here. Let's say you took movement there, and you don't have a headshot. So let's take a Polaroid. And so they saw me, and I don't know how, but here's the thing. Back then, knowing nothing about acting, I knew what bad acting looked like. And to me, it made the most sense. Just pretend like it's actually happening, and just don't try. Like just talk to the person like you're talking to anyone else. And that intuitively made sense. And I'm guessing that helped, like trying not to act. Doesn't matter. I got the job.
You got the job.
Terrified. It was 2 or 3 lines, and it was an under 5. For those of you who don't know it, when you're 5 lines or less on a soap opera, it's called under 5. It's a different sort of pay grade than if you say more than 5 lines. So it was an under 5, 1 episode. I was so terrified I was going to stutter, because I have stage fright. I had it as a kid, and I was so scared. And we were at the end of the day, finally shooting the thing and loving it. I mean, loving it. I remember I fell in love after blocking. I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. This is so great. But I still was convinced that I was going to make a fool out of myself. But it went great. And then I started to think, God, I need to do this. I got to do this every day. Like, how do I do this every day? It still took me a couple of years to get around to actually taking acting classes. I was like, oh, I'll do voice, I'll do speech. But I really was afraid to dive in. So it's not a quick story, but the quick ending of the story is I spent 5 years in New York. I did 2 years, but the under 5 became recur. The recur became a contract.
It did. I was going to ask.
Yeah.
That's what ends up. But then does the contract go away? Because with soaps, just so people know, they have a contract with you. They might do a 3-year or 1-year contract with you, but every 13 weeks, every cycle, they have an opportunity to let you go, whether the story is not working or whatever.
Exactly what happened.
Is that what happened?
Year 1, they had They had 4 outs, so they had every 13 weeks, and in years 2, 3, and 4, they could not pick up the option every 6 months. Sometime in the first year, they didn't pick up the option, and it just wasn't working out. They didn't know what to do with me. I stunk. It was both. And I remember feeling like the writing was on the wall. And at the time, I was going to a bunch of different studios to take casting director workshops or whatever, if you will. Marcy Phillips, who still is running ABC Primetime Casting in that building, Marcy Phillips had a one night, ticket class with Marcy Phillips night. And I remember thinking, oh, I'm ABC daytime. She's ABC primetime. I should meet her. I was like, I was showing up for work every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. Like it was just tapering off. So I remember this fucking so clear. There was a scene from Alias. I remember like working really hard on it. I remember being so nervous, went to the class, and I if I didn't go first, I went second. Like I just wanted to get it done. Like anyone who wants to go next? I fucking sitting front row. I jumped up there. I remember not pseudo blacking out, but this is a room full of people who I'm like, oh my God, all these people know what they're doing. And I'm 23 or 24 and all the imposter syndrome's like on full. But I remember doing the scene and I remember Marcy saying good job. And I also remember then like the next week going up to ABC primetime offices because I had I had my thing that said I
badge.
My badge. So this is after September 11th now. So the security's higher, but I'm like, hey, I work across the street. I'm going to go up and see ABC daytime casting. Same floor. Elevator opens. You go left to go to daytime. You go right to go to primetime. Once I got up there, this is the shit I don't think I do now. I just took the elevator up and I walked right into her fucking office. Hey, Marcy, I'm Teddy. I took your class a week ago. And she was so nice. She was so sweet and she was complimentary. And I was just coming by to say hi. So when the option didn't get picked up weeks later, I called her and I said, hey, Marcy, it's Teddy Sears again. I just wanted you to know I've been let go from the show. And I still remember. So she said, congratulations. And I hadn't thought of it that way. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Now I can bring you in for things. There's something I want to bring you in on. Who's your manager? And I said, I don't have one. And she said, oh, hold on, call me back in 2 minutes. So I did. And she said, okay, I just got off the phone with the manager. He's like old school, last of a dying breed. And he'd love to meet you. And I lived on 8th Street at the time in New York. He was on 9th Street. So I walked a block, crazy shit. I walked up, here's a scene from a movie, work on it, bring it back in a few days and do a read for me. And I did. And he said, I'd like to work with you. And he has since passed away, but his partner is still my manager, Sandy Erickson. So I
was going to say,
we got together in 2001 and 2024, and this partnership is as strong as ever. So anyway, these things began to happen. And then all in 5 years in New York. And every year was like, there's an SVU episode. Oh, great. I had 5 lines on SVU. I discovered the dead body. And then a year later, like Criminal Intent. Oh, I got another. Oh my God, this is so great. And meanwhile, just hustling and scraping by to pay rent and all, like being a cater waiter, all that shit. And then
why LA? Why, if you're starting to get momentum in New York and walk up and get a nice meet and greet with a casting director, which is unheard of these days. I used to crash auditions back in the day. You can't do that shit anymore.
No.
Drive onto the lot with a friend and be like, I'm just going to go ahead and sign in right here and I'll give my ticket.
But we're definitely being, a little bit more
creative. We're creators. So we need to, So then what makes you go, hey, let's do LA? Like, and also how does the Bernthal cross happen?
I didn't want to go to LA. Every year I was getting like another credit or two. And luckily TV commercials were helping keep me alive. The modeling thing just wasn't a thing. That was a thing that helped get me the soap. But I was like, oh, I want to be doing this because this involves walking, talking, and learning lines. And also I'm 6'4" and gang. I was not going to get any real modeling jobs. And I fell in love. I fell in love with acting. I started going to William Esper Studio. He's a Meisner guy in New York. So I did 2 years with Esper, with Bill himself. I started to get serious about it. And then
He'll give you the speech. It's going to take 10 years and then 20 years. Did he give you that speech that he gives his classes?
That's ringing a bell. No, it's funny because the thing that really jumps out is I remember when I was there, I was 23 and someone was like, it's going to take you 8 years before you start really. And I remember thinking 8 years, 31. I can't wait till I'm 31, man. But what ends up happening, young actors, is whether it's 8 years, 5 years, 3 years or longer, when you go and if you're fortunate enough to see casting people or have casting people see your tape, which is the greater reality now, you're in the business of making fans as much as you're in the business of getting the actual job itself. I look at these as planting seeds, that these seeds are hopefully going to sprout and grow. And it might take years and years. I finally got a job with John Papsadera after 10 plus years of reading for John, I think. And so little things like you may not be right for the thing, but if you go and you make all your good choices and you put the work in and you show up and you may not be at all what they're looking for, but it's their job to remember you and hopefully.
Yes.
Anyway, so that is, I'm not sure how we got on that one, but so
LA, how does LA come
right.
calling? Because the 8-year marker, you find yourself in Los Angeles for sure.
I'm so
around 31.
Yeah. I was, okay, back then you go and you read for something and you'd be put on literal tape, right? And the tape would get put in like a manila envelope and sent out, literally like flown from New York to Los Angeles, where it would be viewed by the powers that be. This is pretty specific to pilots or pilot season or episodic work for characters that may have a life beyond just one episode, right? So the long and short of it is I read Meg Simon, what's her name? She was she was like at Fox, and Meg put me on tape and John Power, who's the senior casting guy over at Warner Brothers still. John was her assistant for Smallville. There was a part on Smallville and the role was Aquaman. And what I didn't know is that they were planning to introduce Aquaman on an episode of Backdoor Pilot, right? This was the WB at the time. And it was the first thing I'd read on. I mean, I had been put on tape for a number of things over the years. Listen, this is the thing. I didn't have auditions all the time in New York. I was young coming up and every audition that I got seemed like so huge. Like, I got to nail this one. There's a little bit too much pressure when the auditions aren't happening all the time. But this was the first one I remember because of training with Bill or whatever. Like, I really worked hard on this. And it was the first thing I'd read on that was like going to go forward. Like the tape went out to LA. They were interested. And my friend, a high school friend, was getting married in Salt Lake City the weekend before the callback, which was on a Monday. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be out there for a wedding. I'll just fly myself to LA from there. It's close. It wasn't close. It was a few hours, but still, I'm most of the way there. So I fly out, I put myself up. I go to one of the buildings right near Warner Brothers on Barham. Dee Dee Bradley was the casting director. It was me and Alan, the guy who's on Reacher now, Rickman, who is a fucking specimen of a human being. Like, he doesn't have, like, he's so ginormous now, but he was ginormous then. He's got to be 6'5", with large muscles, and he's handsome and charismatic, and like he got the gig. But what ended up happening was now I'm in Los Angeles and Dee Bradley walks me down the hall and she's, oh, how long are you here for? You should meet my friend so-and-so. Monica Swan, casting director. Monica was like, oh, nice to meet you. We sat for 5 minutes. She's like, while you're at her, you should meet my friend at Fox Features Casting, Christian Kaplan. And so I went and had a meeting with Christian. And that sort of thing began to happen not only on the casting side, but on the agent side. I'm 28 years old. I'm a white dude. Like, every fucking pilot at that time had a guy around my age that was like going to be in it. And so maybe there was a little bit of, you're new here. We don't know your face. We should get you in the rotation. We've seen all the same. I mean, I really don't know what the narrative was, but it became pretty clear. If I were serious about this profession, I would have to go to Los Angeles. And that was zero plans to do that. I liked being in New York. I fucking love New York. But John Bernthal we grew up together in DC. I was terrified of him. He's fucking screw loose, man. He'd fight anybody. And he's feral. Like, he's feral.
Yeah, he's very feral. Yeah.
Fucking makes him
he's contained it a little bit more.
Oh, big time. He'll be the first to tell you. I'm sure he has. He did, but I'm like Mr. Timid and really never fought anybody in my life. John and I had mutual friends. We'd see each other at parties, whatever. John went to ART, Moscow Art Theater, literally went to fucking Russia to study. And we ended up in New York at the same time. Again, 01, 02, 03, and we ran around together there, took some classes together. And I remember John being like, listen, I'm going to go out to LA. I have family there. If you ever make it out, hit me up and I'll give you a place to stay. And so I did. When I got out here, I was like, hey, John, listen, this whole Smallville thing, I was supposed to come out for, I don't remember, 2-3 days. And I extended my trip and I reached out to John. I was like, John, remember when you said I could sort of stage a place? He said, come on over. So he gave me a car. His little cousin was driving this car. He took the car from his cousin and it was a Pathfinder. He let me drive around. Yep. He showed me around. He showed me how the freeways worked. He showed me how to navigate the Wilshire corridor. He just he put my feet underneath me. And very recently I saw John at a wedding. Very recently I told him about this and he's like, dude, I don't remember that. He's like, I was smoking a lot of weed at the time. So it's very possible you did, but I don't remember. I was like, John, I literally stayed at your house for 3 weeks. You kicked me out because Labor Day was coming and you said, my family's coming, my mom and dad, like, we need I was like, you got it. I'm out of here September 1st. And John and I we're still buds. Like, he's stratospheric success, but there's something about, like, you're still at it. There's something about being able to say, wow, I'm still here 20 something years in. I feel very proud about that. And
Well, Teddy, this trajectory of you like being like, I don't know, I'll live in Hawaii to now, I don't know what I'm doing on set to then like what I said when I started the interview. Once you hit 31, if my math is correct, you don't stop working. I always like picking apart different ones where I'm like, I want to know the audition story for that.
oh, I can't. Well, fuck, I love this shit. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to ask a couple, but then I want to know yours, like that one audition.
Yeah.
But can you marry? Just because I love Bill Asbury, we talk about him a lot on here and his teachings and just his technique or whatever, tools, whatever you want to call it, training. Right. I'm curious how you approached your first Ryan Murphy audition, because talk about like getting in the family or starting to plant seeds, like you said, with Marcy earlier on.
Yeah.
You got in that family and then you're like in the family now. So that's an audition. I'm curious if you remember it.
I do.
For them.
I do. I didn't know Ryan. Actually, I don't know if I knew Ryan's like pedigree back then. Certainly, here's what I remember the audition, and I'll tell you about that in a sec. But prior to that, we did some American Horror Story in my acting class, John Rosenfeld. I love John. Any young actors, check out John Rosenfeld. I started training with John in 2006. And the thing about John that I love and what a studio did really well for me was, unlike the Esper class where we were doing Chekhov and we were doing Edward Albee, John is doing shit in his class that's working on TV or right now. So you're like, oh,
relevant.
It's no longer theoretical. Like I can actually, and so that gave me confidence. Oh, this is casting now. I can do this. Wow. Okay. And so we did some American Horror Story from the pilot. This is season 1 back in 2011. We did some stuff. And so it was somewhat familiar to me when the audition came in. I knew the project. I knew what we worked on in class, like the rhythm of the thing. I knew who the characters were by and large. So the casting director was Eric Dawson. I remember going to UDK was it Valley Village? I miss going there in person. It's a great office for those. They had 3 or 4 different casting
different offices
running at the same time. Liz Dean's kicking ass in one room, and you
Carol's in the other one, Robert's in the other.
Yeah, right. So great. I say this, it was easy. I'm always nervous when I go to these things.
I was so nervous whenever I go to UDK. UDK, for some reason, was nerve-wracking for me because you just see so many other actors and so many casting directors.
Next to them, you're looking at who's already signed, and you're like, oh, this motherfucker's already come here. Oh, man, they're so good. And I just remember it was Eric in his office in a camera. And I remember doing it was 2 scenes. And I think we did both of them no more than twice. I can't remember. Eric's always been cool. I remember seeing Eric on things before. I had tested up in that office before for things years ago. So like I was familiar, and I love when it wasn't like there's 6 producers watching you. It's like just you and the casting director.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, cool. Great. Oh my God. It's not a rogues gallery of fucking people staring or on their phones or whatever. This is great. So that's what I remember. And I remember it was the next day or day after I got a phone call from my agent saying, okay, the role you read for has been given to Zach Quinto, but there's another role in there. I know, that's how I know Zach, right? But there's another role. This character you read for has a partner, a boyfriend on the show, and Ryan watched the tapes and he's picked you to do the other one. And I was like, oh my God. And they're like, and you go to work tomorrow. I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I got to learn my shit. So they shot at Paramount. The cast to me in that season they're all from Mars, man. I'm like, oh my God, I don't belong here with these humans. Dennis O'Hare to me is a fucking god. So yeah. So I remember I went for a fitting. I saw Ryan. I hadn't met him up to then. And Ryan's like, I'd love for you to watch the pilot so you get an idea of tone. Here's my assistant's information. Call her and she'll set it up. And I went and watched. And I was so blown away by what I saw. And we shot on film. So it had that great look. The hours were bananas. They stopped giving us full scripts after a while because they didn't have them written. They started working Saturdays. And all my shit was with Zach. And that's how I got to meet Zach Quinto. For those who don't know, which is probably everyone, I'm on a series now called Brilliant Minds. It's on NBC. Zach Quinto is our number 1. And so we have this really cool
full circle
prior relationship. Yeah.
That's why I wanted to connect the dots and know, did Zach kind of help with Brilliant Minds? Does that come full circle? Obviously it does. You guys know each other, but was there any tip off, or was there just, oh, this is great, Zach and I are on the same show? Did Zach
it's so funny. So this audition for Brilliant Minds I'm like where I am in my house. There's like one boring gray wall here. And that's where we do our auditions. And I was shooting the Flash finale at the time. And this is such an actor thing, but like a me thing. Like I got there, they like cut my hair and I loved how it looked. And I did my shit. We worked like all night long. I came home the next day and I had a weekend off and I had an audition for Brilliant Minds, which was called back then, it was called Wolf. And I remember like liking my haircut, being like, oh, this is a great TV haircut. Like I'm not shallow. I woke up and did the audition. And it was one of the first things I read in a long time where I was like, I know exactly who this guy is. I know him. I feel very, when you read some things and they're written in a way that like, it's just easy to learn. And conversely, you read things and you're like, God, I just don't talk like this. This is really, these are lines for me to learn. It was written in a way, luckily for me, that I slipped right into. And I did the audition here and I was back in Vancouver working on Flash and got an email saying, you've been very strongly pinned. I was like, strongly? Yeah. I've never heard that before. And but the first round of tests, I wasn't in that. I wasn't in that first round of tests. And I had still hadn't reached out to Zach because
you did or you did not. You hadn't.
I didn't because I could see it cutting both ways. Like I could have seen Zach being like, I love Teddy. Teddy's great, but Teddy's not right for this. And him shutting it down as opposed to him helping bring it across the finish line. Zach is a producer on the show. He could have, and Zach's very discerning. He's a very fucking great ass actor. And I respect his opinion, but I didn't want to be shot down before I had a chance to go and do the test. So they didn't pick any of the guys in the first round of tests. And so then I got the test. And so I reached out to Zach and said, oh, I heard there's a test on the books. And he's like, great, I'll see you over Zoom. So this chem read was over Zoom in my living room, right fucking here.
Okay, so tell me how you do your chem Zooms, because I get actors writing in all the time to Zoom or not to Zoom. And I did even a class helping people because it's an uncomfortable thing, especially for a test, if there needs to be chemistry or whatever. Or maybe you love it. Like I love it. I don't mind it. What is your feeling around the test via Zoom?
The TV and film landscape, it's constantly changing, but traditional actor training has largely remained the same.
It's focused on a theater model whose main goal is to help you stretch the expression of your instrument. That's why you can have years of training,
from scene study classes to audition classes,
to even an MFA, and still not be able to book a 2-line co-star.
That's why we created The Bridge for Actors,
a collection of tech, craft, and business online courses to teach you the skills that you need to go from a student of acting
to a working actor.
What is your feeling around the test via Zoom?
I'd only had one. I'd had two, maybe three before, since that became our new paradigm. And I just, up to that point, preferred being in the room because I think you get a real sense of what it's like to stand across from someone. You can actually have chemistry. You can meet a creative team and you can all get a sense of if this is working or not. But then someone said to me prior to this Brilliant Minds test, they said, we watch people on TV anyway. We see people on TV having chemistry. What's the difference? I was like, oh, yeah, I guess that's a good point. My fear, to distill it, was that chemistry was going to be lost in somewhere in the technology, right? Like somewhere we would lose that real thing that happens when you're looking eye to eye with somebody.
Or glitch,
Yeah, or something like that. It was convenient. It was comfortable. I could do it at my house, but also there's something about getting in the car and driving and that whole like hour prep or whatever in the car on the way there. But I don't know. So we shot a scene in the pilot that didn't end up making it to air. And I'm sitting next to Zach. It's at a bar in the show. And Zach said to me, this was the scene that got you the job. And this scene, prior to the scene in the script, there's a scene between these two that lead into the scene at the bar. And I said, hey, Zach, do you mind if we do that scene in our test, like leading up, like just to sort of give us the momentum going in? And he thought it was a good idea. The producers liked it. The director liked it. So maybe it was that sort of willingness to like, let's do more than what's being asked for. And so I don't know if it was that or not, but that definitely helped me feel.
So was it a ramp up? It was like a lead-in scene to the bar scene, or was a scene a few episodes?
It was literally a lead-in. So I was like, this is perfect because one is like, hey, I think we got up on the wrong foot. Let me buy you a beer. And so there was a little bit of that moment there. And that leads us right into, we're a little bit more looser at the bar, talking about our lives and talking about things like that. So I just felt like that's better. That's better. We're breaking the ice slowly. These characters would have this scene in their belts or on the horizon in their actors' minds. let's just fucking do it. And he was game. And I don't know. That was just, I don't know. Looking back, I was like, oh,
Hey.
maybe that helped. I don't know.
No, I'm sure it did. But I also think, look, you had been working a lot at that point. But I want to see if you'd be willing to just, especially on this one, since it's relevant at this moment.
Yeah.
When you come off of a show and then you have to turn around and throw a tape down and it's for a pilot,
Yeah.
but you know Zach, so you could probably get tone from that. I love Lee Tolan-Krieger. I've done a pilot with him. I've known him for a very long time. I love his vision. So you can do research on him and get a tone, his vibe. But what is your preparation work? Like, besides reading the script or whatever, you've been with Bill, now you're with John. Like, when you sit down with the script, what are a couple of things that you do to start doing the work?
Yeah, I really dive into like you said, the script first, get an overall sense of the world, do write all the research on the people, get an idea of tone. But it's really, I don't know. It's just, you've read scripts and I just read it and read it. Like my size, I just read it a bunch and I start to have ideas and I start to put the jigsaw puzzle pieces together. And I remember talking to Bill about this a few years later after I quote unquote graduated, came back and talked to him. And I was like, the thing I love about getting a scene is I love figuring out, like, making all the parts come together, like seeing where the turn is in the scene. I was like, it just feels like a puzzle that I need to solve. And the thing that has been happening more and more over the years is that puzzle just gets solved very quickly when I read scenes. Oh, I think it's this. I think it's this because it's this the moment before. And then I think this is what we're doing. And this is what's really under the words. And things just start to come to me. I don't know if it's like things just start to come to me. And so if I have to take a long walk and let ideas just come, or jump in a shower. Like I remember in New York, I used to just get on a bicycle and bike up and down the West Side Highway, trying to learn my monologues or shit for class. And then invariably ideas would come to me, like my body was fucking busy, like my legs are working.
Yes.
And I just get ideas or something. But really at this stage, I have a toddler. There's no time for this shit. I have to really just trust what's coming up. And I watch enough TV and I've seen enough things and read enough scripts to know, okay, I think it's this. And what I hate about self-tapes is that it's like shooting an arrow into a dark room. The bullseye's in there somewhere. You just have no fucking idea where the bullseye is. And so what we're missing when you're in a room with casting people is be like, that's great. It's a little bit more, the bullseye's a little bit more this way. Oh, of course it's this way. Okay, that's great. I didn't think about that. When you send it out and you don't have that immediate feedback, it's in the ether. And it's going back to New York in the early 2000s. We're like, I guess my tape got into an envelope and got sent. I don't know if I watched it because I haven't heard anything. It's a little bit of like that. The creators aren't there to tell you if you're on the mark or not. But I found the chem read with Zach to be great. It was a great mellow vibe with the team. And in general, I remember just feeling, because I could understand this guy, that it didn't require a ton of preparation. I just had to bring that. Oh, he's not only a surgeon, he's a neurosurgeon. Okay, that's a certain type of human. There's only so much time one has at the hospital to actually have conversations. So I think he's fast. I think he speaks fast. I think he's very precise and he's very ordered. And he's the fucking master of the universe. And this guy's going to get in his way. They're oil and water. So let's go with that. And there's script analysis right there. Also, television's so formulaic, and when you've had as many hours of television that you've acquired over time, you can look at a script and be like, yep, okay, let's. Yeah. And not to put network TV in this box, because I think streaming's influenced network TV a great deal. It used to be, John Rosenberg talked about this all the time. He's, listen, TV's archetypes, man. Listen, again, this is pre-streaming, but it's, you're the fucking asshole. You're here's your archetype. You got to fulfill your archetype. And it's not so unlike that for this show. At least for me, it was very I know this guy and I think he fits into this box and I understand that box a lot. So let me just go with that. So not to dumb network TV down but not at all. Again, it's just formulaic. And once you figure out the formula, you know what you need to serve in order to serve that formula. Is it a procedural? Is it a serialized show? Right. Is it a comedy? Is it multicam? Is it like what world are we living in? And I love network TV. I cut my teeth on all just guest starring on a lot of network TV. And so I love it. I know how it works. I know what the boundaries are. I know what the hours are. I know what the vibe is. And just applying all. It's your day job now. It's your day job. It feels great to be in for 4.5 months it was. And now we're waiting to hear if hopefully we get more. But yeah, they launched really well. And so far it's going great.
Hey writers, what are your New Year's goals? Forget hitting the gym or dry January. How about writing a brand new TV pilot? Hi, I'm Tanya Bhattacharya. I'm a working writer, co-executive producer who's written on over a dozen shows, including Bel Air, A Million Little Things, and Ginny and Georgia. And I'm also the founder of TV and feature film writing school, Script Anatomy. I am super excited to bring back Script Anatomy's Pilot Palooza 30-day TV writing challenge
in 2025, starting January 1st.
With the challenge, you'll develop and write a new pilot in 30 days with me as your guide. Each day, you'll get lessons, tips, tools, and assignments to help build your story from concept through development, outline, and draft. We'll cover all the fundamental building blocks necessary to write a kick-ass script. And we'll use specific shows as examples so you can see how what you're learning applies and is illustrated in every single pilot. You'll also be able to connect with other writers on a private forum. Then on day 31, we'll celebrate your accomplishments together on a live Zoom. What are you waiting for? If you're ready to commit to your writing dreams, then you'll find this fun and motivating. And you'll start the year with a new sample by February 1st.
All of this for just $175.
That's less than a fancy coffee a day. So why don't you check out pilotpalooza.com for details and sign up?
And so I want to circle back on one thing before.
Yes, you have to.
I don't know if I really answered like the Ryan Murphy of it all. That was a great experience. I didn't work for Ryan again. That was 2011. I didn't work for Ryan again until Politician, which was 2019 and then 2019 and 2020. And that was an audition.
It was. Okay. I didn't know because sometimes when you get in the family, they're like, hey, what's up? What are you doing?
That was an audition. American Crime Story Impeachment was an audition, and American Horror Stories was not an audition, but Manny Cotto wrote that one. Manny Cotto was my boss on 24 Legacy. And I think Manny had something to do with, hey, what about Teddy for this? And I just think Ryan agreed. But I was in there the other day. I was reading they're doing Monster season 3. Right. Like I read for that and it was, it was, wow, that's going to be fucking phenomenal.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. That's what I was talking to Tamer about. I'm like, listen here.
And it's also shooting in LA. Can you do this? Right.
I just love how this all pieces together, but so I prompted you on these auditions. Is there that one audition that you wanted to share? Because I don't want to steal your thunder and steer you in a direction. These are epic stories just as they are.
The first thing that comes to mind is that one audition that was a fucking dumpster fire, which was
love those.
The worst.
I told you my dumpster fire. I shared mine, you share yours.
Yeah, right. There was literal fire involved in yours. Not literal, but fire in the belly.
I lit that room on fire, not once but twice.
the room could have used a lit match, is my life. No, mine. Okay, so my just crash and burn to me audition was auditioning for Avatar.
For Avatar?
For the Sam Worthington, for the lead. Listen, whatever. Okay, so.
We gotta hear this, yeah.
This was unlike anything I'd ever done before. So they weren't releasing the sides of the script. So you had to get there early. I forget the casting director's name. She was so lovely, but you got to get there early. You sign it out. You go sit in the hallway and you learn 5 pages of this dialogue, knowing it's in this fantastical world or whatever. And then you hand the script back in and you go in for your audition. So I did it. I sat in the hall. I tried to learn. I had it all down. I felt really good about it. I think it was 2 scenes, like, okay, 2.5 page scenes or whatever, something like that. Okay, I can do this. Went in. And she's like, okay, so you no doubt took time with the script and learned all the words. She said, okay, now I want you to say all the words you were going to say. Same intentions and everything. But instead of in English, I want you to use a made up language and say it like, all the intentions and everything, but just say it but and whatever language you want, but not Spanish or something like sounds. It has to be sounds. And I remember being like, what eventually started coming out of my mouth was like fucking, out of the Star Wars cantina. It was like, tuta solo, ho, 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 ho. It was fucking awful. It was awful. I remember leaving the room being like, that's not fair. So somewhere out there's a cache of really horrible auditions that all of us did. Or maybe just me. So that's my one garbage fire.
That is totally unfair. That is just not even close.
No,
it's kind of similar to Jason Momoa doing first season of Game of Thrones, and they gave him whatever that language was. And then he's like, I can't fucking do this. So he did the haka dance instead. And that's,
Oh, really?
And then they tried not to give him the job for a year. Yes.
Wow.
They're like, first they didn't want to hire Americans, nothing against him. And then they couldn't find anybody like him. There's nobody like Jason.
There's nobody like him. So yeah.
And that commitment to doing the haka dance versus people going in going like,
no.
How does Sam get that job? I would love to see Sam's tape of him going in and committing to that. Like,
maybe at that point it was like, listen, we are really going about this all wrong. Maybe we should have them do it in, though, but maybe he was great because the only thing I remember from that is someone put in my head that what James Cameron was looking for a person, an unknown or someone who comes across as a leader of men. I was not looking like a leader of men that day. I was looking like a terrified, deer in the headlights trying to come up with words on the spot. And anyway, Sam Worthington, my man, really.
Were you able to shake that one off? How long did it take you to shake? What's your recovery process? Because for somebody that works as much as you do, and like you said, there's moments where it might be 7 months, might be 6 months, might be a year. Right. What's your recovery process when you bomb an audition?
Oh man. So very luckily, I can honestly say because I don't know if I over prepare, but I really go in there and just pour my whole self into it and just get really excited. There's been 2 or 3. There's another one I can think of that was a real shit show. I don't know. When I was younger, it stung for a long time because I was like, oh, that was my shot. And luckily with frequency and coming out to California and having the volume of work I've, been able to read for, I've got a little bit more experimental and less precious, and I still want to get every job, but I recognize too, hey, you might not be looking for me whatsoever. And it's a matter of how you fit into the cast sometimes. Are you related to anyone? And do they have your coloring? And all these things that I have no control over. So what I do now is I just have my strong conviction about what I go in and do, and I feel really good about it. Like I just read for Palm Royale, like Close But No Cigar. And I'm like, I loved my work. I loved my tape. If they went with someone else, that was a better fit. There's no regrets of, if I'd only done that differently. Those days are done, man. Those days are done.
Good.
Really strong.
And I think that's what people need to get to is one, getting back to the fun. What I heard you were like, I'm just excited to get to work, which that is the work. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if you can't go into the room anymore. Now you get to set up a whole scene at your house and you can do it however you want. House.
Yeah, you can, and you don't have they're not toe tapping because there's 10 other people out there to get in and you only get a couple of cracks. Like you can take some time, you can ask for an extra 6 hours. You can, yes. So you're exactly right. Now it's mine. This is my time. And that's what John Rosenfeld tried to, he's like, this is your fucking audition. This is not their audition for you. It's your audition for them. So take command of that room, move the chair, do the things you need to do to feel like, and just applying that at home. It's like now that's on steroids. So
I love that.
That's the place that's the place.
Okay. Last question, just because somebody who's worked as much as you have in television and coming from a space of, not that this was intended to be your day job. This was not the business that you were thinking you were stepping into.
Yeah.
What is something about the business you wish you would have known early on, or when you're starting to work on different shows, that would have helped you as an actor?
I really wish I had someone in my life who had been in it already or had experience that I could ring up or just email like, hey, is this? And so I try to be that for younger actors if I can. Absolutely, because it's scary. And it's really hard navigating the representation process. Like this agent, that agent, like you don't know who's shady. You don't know who's respected and who gets their phone calls returned. And when you're young and hungry, you just want someone to send you out. And I also think landing with someone who is going to develop you and is going to give you time, is going to understand that it may take you a while to work, is a good place to start. It's everybody wants to be at like a marquee agency that puts packages and fucking deals together. But like for most of us, it's not the right fit. And if you're coming up, you want someone who's going to return your phone calls and who's going to help develop you. So I think that's really hard to navigate, but I wish I had someone to help me. Luckily, I met my manager.
I was just going to say.
And so I did have them to guide me. And they also were there to be like, listen, this is as good as you can do. So take them because they're interested. And
Okay, because
so
that
I
was going to be my question too. Also, having legacy and relationship with a manager for so long, or even an
Yeah.
agent for so long. Because I just had this conversation earlier. How do you avoid being poached or like getting tempted? Like grass is greener, right? Like another manager, or possibly being like in that lull of 7 months. Maybe I'll change it up right now. Maybe I'll get new energy and see what new relationships are. Like, how is your business acumen to stay here, or how have you developed that relationship so well that they've stayed through thick and thin?
Yeah, I think I've just been faithful to the idea that jumping somewhere else and making a lateral move is, I don't know, you're still the same actor, you're still the same person. The other agents they might have more connections, but the closer reality for me was going to be like, they were going to know the same casting people. They were going to have clients who work on the same projects. And I don't know. I've never been one. I've just been more loyal. And I also I try to think big picture, and I can get really fucking impatient. But also see, there's periods of expansion and there's periods of contraction, man. And there are going to be times when shit's just going to be slow. I have great fucking actor friends who are number one on IMDb, number one on call sheets, can't get a job this year. It's that's just a matter of the contraction that you mentioned earlier and the number of parts available. And I do think young actors, all actors, save your money, keep it. Just
that part.
Give yourself.
Go to business school. You know how to manage your money.
Manage your money, because our incomes are lumpy, and you might have amazing years and you might have like really lame years. But basically, if you want to stay in this, just make sure that you're living right in the fucking middle. You're not living high. You can live low if you want, but just know that, to me, just know that there are fallow periods. That's just going to happen. And I think it happens to great actors too. So for me, there was no like someone can do better for me, because I just believe maybe I'm just, well,
there's something to be said about a relationship. Like you said, if it's a lateral move, there's something to be said about a relationship where somebody knows they've seen, well, now they get to see your tapes.
Yeah.
My agent, I love my agent. I've been with him for 5-6 years. So before pandemic, but since pandemic, since he gets to see my work every single week, do you know what's happened? My auditions are different because he can see what I can do. He can see where he can push. So I think that there's something about history. If you have a good relationship, that you continue to nurture that. I'm class and trash. He knows that. He knows when he gets a breakdown now. He's yep. Okay. So if you start a new relationship with another agent, it's going to take time for them to get to see how you work, unless you've been on television forever and ever and always. But like, it's a different situation when you are like, you're the epitome of the amazing working actor. You are always working and you're an amazing actor. So it's like, but you can walk down the street, right?
Oh yeah.
Auditioning for things, but and booking things, but this is a sweet spot to be in. And it's great to keep your, I think, relationships exactly where they are, because they've been with you through all of these.
And I remember having frustrated conversations, and them being like, like they know me. I know you're frustrated. I wake up every day and I think like, how can I help get you? He's like, oh, it's like the stuff that agents say, but I actually believe, like, listen, I know it sucks. I know it's hard. Also, like you said, I know you, I know what you can do, and I know what's in development, and I can talk to these people, and they know you, and they'll take a tape from you and all that stuff. So yeah, part of that is trusting that you got a good team.
And you do. And I can't believe how it all happened. When it happens that serendipitously too, how you ended up with that manager.
Yeah.
These are the stories that I live for. I'm like, oh, that makes you just feel like alignment is everything. You were in flow. You were in a good space. You were direct. Yeah. You made that move to walk upstairs, say hi to Marcy, and then here you go.
Yeah. There's something I'll say, like, before we close too. There's been a lot of, you can feel sometimes when you're banging your head against the wall. And then you feel like there are times when things are just, you find a scene, you're just in flow, or you think things are easier. And that happened for Brilliant Minds. I was coming off a Berlanti project. This is so silly, but I had a TV haircut 2 days before I had to read for this. I was feeling pretty fresh. It's looking pretty doctory, looking pretty good. And then the guys who, I don't know, it's David Rappaport who cast Flash. They also cast Brilliant Minds. So I know Rappaport well now from 10 years ago working on Flash. And I I know the guys at Berlanti, and it was Greg who, when they were trying to decide on the job, it was Greg Berlanti who told the showrunner, he's a nice guy, he's a good guy, or something like that. And I think it's little seals of approval like that are part of a greater, like, it just felt like it was circling back in on itself in a lot of ways. And okay, so now we're off and running. And these are things that that just weren't happening a year prior or 18 months prior. And so sometimes it's just about surviving, waiting it out, believing like this, I'm part of a larger army of creative fucking weirdos who love acting. And so just stay alive, hang around, do the things you got to do to feel, remind yourself, I think, that
Excited.
Like why you're here, if that's go to class, if that's watch movies, if I don't know what it is, man. Or it's like, all right, I'm thinking about acting too much. I'm gonna pick up this instrument, or I'm gonna get into this other thing. But to keep yourself expanding, that's how it's helped me out. And my hope is that the show can go. And the stakes are higher with a little one. You have a little one. The stakes
I do, but haven't you noticed? Can you confirm for me, from a male perspective, those babies bring exactly what they need? I was told before I had my child, you'll never work more once you're a parent. And I was like, you are insane. And it's absolutely true. And your son's 2. And you just said like the last 18 months.
That's true. That's true.
It's pretty great. And you don't have the time to luxuriate on forcing things to happen. You have a limited amount of time.
Overthink anything. You're like, okay, we have 30 minutes. He's sleeping. Let's get this audition done. And I'm gonna trust this foundational ideas of what I think the thing is, and let's just put it on tape. Let's do it. And man.
Back to changing a diaper.
Exactly. Okay. And looking at this, like you talk about slaloming here, like slaloming naps and slaloming. So that's at least like where I find myself now. And I also this thing's not going to last forever. And it could be another year before I get on something else. But listen, I love working. I'm so fucking grateful that I'm able to call myself this. And also I think too, the older I get, the more relationships I have and the more I stay in touch with people who I've worked with, because everyone's working on something else always. And talking to them it reminds me that I'm part of this sort of larger creative group. And the upside bonus could be that they might keep you in mind for something. But by and large, I like to be able to reach out to Greg Berlanti. I like being able to reach out to Sean Ryan. Like, I'm not going to abuse that, but we've worked together. We're like, it's not, So anyway,
those are the seeds that have grown into flowers. So your garden is lush and you know when to pluck them. You
just went full circle.
I did. I just went full circle.
Yeah.
Okay, so Brilliant Minds, is The Night Agent out yet? It's coming out soon?
Yeah, The Night Agent will be out. They just announced January or February of 2025. So soon, yeah.
Juggling. Just keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
Yeah, and I just got an audition come in today for something. So I'm going to look at that when we hang up and try to put it on tape this weekend. Like, it's nice to be able to work, but also for the actors who are like, God, I'd love to get on a series. Like, it's the best. I absolutely love it. I've been lucky enough to have it, but like, shit just doesn't get handed to you. So the work continues.
Work continues. Yeah. Teddy, this was a joy. This was so fun.
Thank you so much.
Where can everybody find you? Are you on the socials? Do you do
I'm only on Instagram. It's Teddy Sears. It's mildly unentertaining, but I just try to right now. It's really all about Brilliant Minds, and as Night Agent gets closer, I'll start doing more stuff about that. But I've been really enjoying. I did it, and it expired, but I like a little Q&A with people on the story. Hey, episode 4 just wrapped. What do you think? And having a nice little Q&A. I try to do that every week or every other. So it's been more fun to talk to people watching the show. I'm trying to be more accessible, but like I said, 2-year-old, man, it's hard.
Yeah, you're juggling. This is amazing. Thank you.
Oh, I love talking about this. Thank you so much.